Hello! If you're new here, welcome, and if you've been here before, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about something different. I'm introducing my editing series that I'm going to be releasing once every month, or once or twice a month, it depends on what I'm doing. So when I first started editing, I just thought it was the regular line editing, which is grammatical errors and spelling, mostly spelling because I'm a really bad speller, but that's what I thought it was at first, just fixing a few things here and there. When I wrote my first book that I'm now editing the correct way, I wanted to publish it, and I knew in order to publish it, it had to be edited, but I wasn't quite sure what that was. I thought it was, like I said, just line editing. And it's been 5 or 6 years now, and over that course of time, I've learned that editing is much more than just on the surface, at least for stories. For stories, it's deeper, it goes below, it goes beyond just the words on the page. It goes down to character development and conflict, and those things are conveyed by the narration. And so in order to acquire the level of character and conflict that we want in our stories, we need to do a deeper edit than we were taught in school. So that's what this series is going to be about. So why should we edit? It should be obvious after what I just said. Whether you plan your book meticulously before you write it, or you prefer to just write it and see what happens. That's what I do. Whether you're a pantser, which is just writing and see what happens, whether you're a pantser or a plotter, you're gonna need some amount of editing. Maybe more than others, more so for some, but every story doesn't come out perfectly, no matter how much time you put into it before you write it. It will still have some flaws, it will still have some things that are not portrayed exactly how you wanted it. Some characters probably misbehaved, and so maybe there is some inconsistencies, who knows. So my challenge to you is, if you're writing a book and you think it's fine, then I challenge you to look at it again after you take some time off. Look at it again, see what areas will need edited, because I can guarantee something will need edited. So, did I convince you to start editing? Hopefully I did. I know it's a scary process. It kept me away from it for a while. I thought my book that I first wrote was a goner because I had no idea where to go. I knew it needed work. I did not know how to do that work. So I just put it on the shelf. Then 5 or so years went by before I came back to it and saw what I could improve. But that was only after I had written more books and beaten out my craft and learned more writing skills. So, where should you start editing? Some say that there's no better place to begin than the beginning, and that's perfectly fine. I first started out at page 1 of chapter 1, first sentence, went off from there, did the entire book, but I was still only line editing. I changed some description, some actions, some research flaws. I thought that was it. That is part of it, and it is important, but that's not the full picture. So where we should start editing is at ground zero of stories. Start at the very foundation of your story. Make sure it's sound there before we build up to new levels of editing. So in this series, I'm going to go level by level of editing and talk about the different elements of those levels. And even though I'm gonna just say it up front here, my experience is not that, I don't have very much of it, but the little experience that I have, I hope will be a help to somebody. And if it does, I'd love to hear about it. And if you have some tips for editing that you have, I would love to hear that too. And go ahead and share that with people in the comments. That I personally would really appreciate it. I'm still figuring out how exactly I like to do it. So, but before I go, I have a few editing quotes that I found very inspirational for myself. They're in my quote notebook. I've had this for, let me see, how long have I had this for? I've had it for at least 7 years, and it is chunky. But that's beside the point. I'm going to read you some quotes here. So most of these, well, not most of these, one of these names I'm probably going to butcher, so forgive me. If you know how to pronounce these, please don't fry me, okay? So the first quote is by Chris Abani. He said, "People think that writing is writing, but actually writing is editing. Otherwise, you're just taking notes." The next one is, "Editing is not merely a method of junction of separate scenes or pieces, but is a method that controls the psychological guidance of the spectator." And this one was by Yesavold Podovkin. That's the one that I was most concerned about. Alright, the next one is by Stephen King. "When you write a book, you spend day after day scanning and identifying the trees. When you're done, you have to step back and look at the forest." Important reminder, because when you're in the middle of writing a book, you're focusing on these tiny little details all the way through. And when you're editing, you gotta kind of take a step back and say, okay, what needs to be changed, what needs to be fixed, stuff like that. That's why I loved that one. This one's kind of a funny one. It's talking about editors as a profession. Some editors are failed writers, but so are most writers. We're not all perfect. That quote is by T.S. Eliot. And the last one is, "A professional writer is an amateur who didn't quit." Richard Bach. So, I hope that was just as inspirational to you as it was to me. These are, at least from Stephen King, these are coming from writers who were in the same place as you and me. No matter where you're at in your writing, they were there too. And I find that very encouraging, that writers aren't just like born perfect. It's like that one by T.S. Eliot. It's like we're all failed writers in some way. But what matters is not how successful you are, not how talented you are. What matters is what you do with that and whether or not you do quit. So, we can get anywhere if we persevere, and that includes editing. So, I will leave you with that, and I'm looking forward to sharing more about this editing series that I'm going to do. The next video is going to be part 1, the foundations of story. And I'm really excited to get into that. So I hope you'll stick around, and and I will see you next time. Bye!